How are you doing today?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
I am good. Are you ready to get started?
Yep, yeah.
All right. So, my first question for you is actually what was your preparation process for the role of Kingsley?
My preparation was more just, I think, getting myself sorted and organized. I think, especially with the script, just knowing the day before in advance, I think, so I could just prepare myself for the scene. So if it's an intense scene where I'm like quite upset, just mentally and physically just preparing for that, I think, especially because of how intense this episode is. And I think just also just having that faith in myself as well, just have confidence with like especially scenes that were quite emotional. Just like before it happened, just say to myself, all right, you've got this. Just stay calm, and then just whatever comes out comes out. So just yeah, I just had to be organized. Yeah.
And how did you get your start in acting?
I first started off in theatre, so it was more of just doing theatre quite a lot, and I was a bit like, what else is there? Because theatre, you're just in the same, just performing every single day, and it's not really changing anything. So I said to my mom, "Oh, mom, I'd like to get into film." She was like, "Okay." So we went to my first film audition, and it was just online. We just saw one. We went to it, and then the lady was like, "All right, chill for a second." She was like, you were exaggerating most of your lines, and she just gave me so many notes. But I think at that time I really wanted the notes back because I'd never had done film before. And she was like, but I would like you to get an agent. She's like, I'd like to work with you one day. So I was like, okay. So she was like, an agent. She explained what an agent was and how they give like you auditions, and then you send it to them, then they send it to the casting directors. So once I did that, my mum found an agent, and then from then it was just fell in love with film. It felt much more natural, and I just kind of it felt more nice. I think just not doing the same thing over and over again. One thing though, self tapes are quite annoying because you get to like hear yourself back. But overall, it's really nice doing film. Yeah.
And with your background in dance and theater, how has that prepared you for your work on screen?
I think just with stamina wise, with dancing on stage, so just I think mentally just knowing, all right, if you keep messing up, just having the courage to just keep going back again. And I think maybe being a perfectionist with theatre, you want to try and make it look perfect on stage. So I think with TV, you kind of have that privilege to like if you make a mistake, you can retake. But I think most of the time I was trying to make it first take all the time. So I think Steve was just like, it's all right if you make a mistake. Like the point of it is to like see different perspectives of how you could play the character, so he might tweak a little section. So it was quite nice to change. Yeah,
What was it like being able to work with Steve McQueen on this project?
he was incredible. I think he was such a caring person. I think with just directing as well, he was just always there for me. I think there were some scenes that I did where it was quite intense, like I said before, and he would just say to the cast and crew, he just step out for a second, let him get into his space and the thought process. So not only was he just directing me, but he was kind of comforting me as well. So I felt very comfortable with just playing the role of Kingsley. And also just some scenes that we did, he kind of gave us the option of how we should do it. So I think there was a couple of scenes I did with my sister, and he was like, "All right, I need you to get from this position to this position, but do it as however you'd like." So in my head, I was a bit like, "All right, with acting is like my first main role, so like it felt weird. I'd prefer being told what to do." But I think it took me out of my comfort zone, which was really nice. And he was just like action, so I was like, okay. I mean, just it came to life. It felt as natural as possible, and I think that built me and my sister's chemistry quite a lot. Yeah.
This is a pretty big year for you. You were in Jingle Jangle and
Yeah.
also now being a part of the Small Act series with education. How does it feel to be a part of both of these two big projects, but also with them having such global audiences?
I think it's insane. I think just especially going from nothing to two things at the same time is it's a lot to take into. But also just being able to adapt to different roles. I think Jingle Jangle's really magical, and it was just always thinking about the positives in life, and it felt like such a nice Christmas vibe, I think. But with this one, it's completely different. So being able to adapt to different roles that you get, which kind of show you can act. So I think it was just really nice going from something. I think also when I filmed it, it was the summer and then the winter, so they were like back to back. So I think it was just really nice to just adapt quickly. I think life's always changing, so it was nice to change with this. But like I said, it's just insane. I'm very like happy to be a part of two things. Yeah, yeah.
And with this film and the Small Act series, with them being period pieces, what did you learn about the past through playing your role?
I learned how schools were just really bad. I think it's easy when you're told something, but just to actually watch something is completely different. I think just to see how racist teachers were and how they just didn't care. There was no like love for the children. I think nowadays teachers have that. You can tell when a teacher likes you. You can tell when the teachers care about you, and they want to make sure you get the best grades as possible. What with this school is like, if you're not smart, then there was no love for the children, I think. But also just the fact that they were willing to just leave, like let Kingsley go. There was no faith. There's no like, all right, let's see what we can do. There was no plan B. I think with like nowadays schools, if your child's not succeeding, they'll give you a booster club, or just idea that schools just then weren't great, and how we've changed so much. Like it's been so like the gap between those schools and our schools nowadays is really big.
Kingsley having such a passion for space and aeronautics and rockets, did you learn anything about space and astronauts through playing your role?
I'd say not really, but I just kind of, it felt nice to play a boy into space. I think I love science now because I'm in secondary school, so I'm furthering that science. So I think it was really nice just to like just be into science as well. So it felt more natural as well. But I think just having that aspiration to be a scientist, it kind of questioned me like, oh, do I like science now? Like it's that kind of thought of I may not like it, but I think it's really nice playing Kingsley. Yeah.
And you are of school age yourself. How do you feel like the school system in the UK differs from your current experience in comparison to the experience of Kingsley?
I think Kingsley's experience was quite tough. I think there was no. I think just him suffering from dyslexia. There was no. Um, I think the teachers just didn't really. They didn't give a damn about him. Just to say like that. I think they were like, all right, you can't read. That's so sad. There was no like, all right, let's sit together. Let's try and figure out why you can't read. And I think because dyslexia wasn't really noticed about in those days, there was not really a name for it. It was just classified as dumb. Whereas nowadays, if someone can't read, they're gonna get an extra time during a test. It's like there's that privilege that they have, and they deserve that test. Like, because it's not like they're trying not to read. It's just they generally can't get the words out. So I think there was just that caring for them and just making sure they can get the best that they can. But I think with this school, just the fact that he had to go to a Saturday school, which was really hard. I think at least this way he was not only taught how to read a little bit just in general, but just his history and his background, I think. And I think nowadays our schools kind of teach you history, but not as much as we should, especially with Black history as well. Like it's quite annoying that there's just a month about it where it should just be generally in the curriculum, I think. But like I said before, it's been such a big gap between our schools and his school in his days. Yeah.
And with Black folks here in the States watching this film and watching the Small Axe films as a whole, what would you like them to learn about the Black experience in the UK?
I think like kind of what my mom was saying a bit. We've got so many like Black American history. I think I've just seen so much, and I think it's kind of hidden Black British history. I think we kind of know the basics, but not like what really happened. So when my mom watched this, she was like, "Oh my god, I've seen so many American things, but I'm not even American." Like, just there's so many stuff on Netflix that they just show, and I think this was a chance for them to kind of see our history when we've seen their history for so long. But also just to see how I think people get across that America's they've got more segregation. I think that was really tough in America, but also just to see how bad Britain were. I think we kind of thought Britain were quite perfect, but it really wasn't, and there was still like racism going on here, and how children suffered it, and it affected the family as well.
And what
Yeah.
was the greatest challenge you noticed with portraying Kingsley?
I think the greatest challenge was just getting across the frustration. I think a lot of the time you can just play frustrate, like just be angry, but it's just to show the stuttering. I think just performing the dyslexia, I think was quite hard. Just to not look like I'm acting, to actually people to believe that I can't read, which was quite hard. Also just when you're reading the words, to try and say to yourself, I can't read that. It was just hard to make your brain think you can't. I think if you can like believe you can't read, then there's that frustration of why can't I read that? So I think it was just that was quite challenging getting that across. So yeah.
And my final question for you is, what do you hope viewers will learn from watching education and viewing the Small Axe films?
I hope that they learn that if there is something that you're stuck on or like you can't do, just to don't give up. I think that's like the main idea that I've always had for this. Not to give up, and also that you've got people there that are like you. You're not by yourself. So I think he kind of thought that he was alone, especially at the school he was. I don't think you saw anyone else dyslexic. Just to know that there are people in the world that are like you, going through the same things, the same struggles. Just to know that you're not alone, and there's people around you that will help you. So having Charlene Agnes as his mother, just there supporting him and his sister and his dad, just helping him, just I think getting how to explain it, just knowing being there to support him and help him achieve him reading. which was really important.